Hello, everyone. Just checking in with the idea of week five. Week five is our introduction to the idea of the singularity. Um, so, the idea of week five is to explore the idea of the singularity, but it's really, in terms of the logic of the course, a follow up, an extension, some way, of the Jonas thesis that we were introduced to in Hans Jonas's Technology and Responsibility last week. I think that as far as an issue in digital ethics or computer ethics or the ethics of digital technologies, the idea of the singularity is very close to what Jonas was getting at in Technology and Responsibility. The idea that because of the progress of modern technology, the growth of it, that we're entering into a new phase of human existence, which is a very grand thesis. But if we look at similar thinking of the time, sort of post-war 20th century, late 20th century thinking, Jonas was not the only person thinking in this direction. That's why I gave you these little bits from Stanislaw Ulam and I.J. Good from 1958 and 1965. Remember Jonas's essay, I think, is about 1973, in which similar ideas were being bandied about. And one should keep in mind that although the focus today, I think, of discussion of the singularity really is very much dominated by the prospects of a superintelligence, that Ulam's original idea, or the idea that he actually attributes to John von Neumann, really is much more Jonas, much more like Jonas's, because doesn't focus on digital technology or the emergence of an artificial intelligence, but rather just the general changes in technology. As Ulam says, one conversation is centered on the ever accelerating progress of technology, so technology as a whole, and changes in the mode of human life. That's the important thing. That is, that the progress of technology will not just be a factor in modern life, it will change modern life, change what it means to live as a human being in fundamental ways, which gives the appearance of approaching some essential singularity in the history of the race, beyond which human affairs as we know them could not continue. That's very close, I think, to what Jonas was getting at in his essay. That is, that it would not just be a change in one factor, again, of human life. It would change what it means to be human. That is, what we took for granted about the basics of human life would no longer apply. And Good's idea that more specifically having to do with the superintelligence, or what he calls an ultra intelligent machine, is very much more in line with modern focus on the kind of changes specifically that a true artificial intelligence, followed very quickly by what he calls an ultra intelligent machine, or what people like Bostrom call a superintelligence, or what will be called AI plus or AI plus plus next week by Chalmers, is really what's being focused on. So really the idea is here, after looking at a couple of issues that may have been manageable issues, self-contained issues, may have been the ethics of autopilot and the ethics of the Facebook experiment, we move into something much larger, which is, I think, much more explicitly tests the boundaries of our traditional ethics like Kantianism and utilitarianism. Can we handle the kind of deep changes and challenges that, if the singularity is a real thing, which I don't know if it really is, and if it occurs, do we have the ethical resources in, for example, things like Kantian and utilitarianism to handle the kind of challenges that will emerge? Just to name one, the very emergence of a true artificial intelligence, that would be in itself a tremendous challenge, because it would raise all sorts of questions of personhood, non-human personhood, non-organic personhood in the artificial intelligence. it would raise all sorts of issues because the idea is not just that an AI would be a fundamentally different entity that we would have to deal with. It's also the effects of the AI, because the AI, by all accounts, would, or by many accounts, would very quickly develop into a super intelligence that would solve a lot of technological problems that promise or threaten to change the very basic, taken for granted conditions of human life. Again, to take an example at random, something like life expectancy, which is something that Jonas is specifically concerned with. That is, if it could be the case that an AI could indefinitely extend the human lifespan, that would provide us with ethical challenges that were unprecedented. If an AI allowed us to, let's say, change ourselves in certain organic or different ways, so that we would fundamentally change the boundaries of human intelligence, let's say, by some sort of biological or other sort of intervention, that would change the conditions of life, human life, in fundamental ways. So much so that one of the terms that you'll hear bandied about by people like Nick Bostrom is transhuman. That is, and that's really at the heart of the John von Neumann idea that, for all intents and purposes, if these fundamental changes were to occur in the conditions of human life, we would no longer be human in the traditional sense. We would be post-human or transhuman. That is, let's just say, a human being with an open-ended lifespan, in which we had arrested the biological process of aging. That would no longer be a human being as we know it. That would be recognizable as being a very close to being a human being, but fundamentally it would be something different. We would be something different. A human being, let's say, with 3-4 times the raw intelligence of the smartest human being alive today, if that makes sense, would be something quite different from what we are. It would be recognizable, but in sort of an evolutionary sense, it would be something that had gone over beyond the human. So I think that Singularity is a particularly rich subject to explore in relation to the Jonas thesis, because it is maybe the most intense exploration of the idea that changes in technology produce such a change in the human condition that we are faced with issues of ethical import that perhaps we are not ready yet to handle.